Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Frontiersman class personal utility craft, the 11th vehicle in my Wimpomania line of vehicles. My name is Wimpoman, and I am the chief designer, chief builder, chief architect, and of course chief dumbass behind the Frontiersman class project. Okay, you'll be happy to know that this isn't a refit. This is an original. This itself is an original vehicle, so there is no other original vehicle to show you. So the first segment of this video is going to be its role and its task equipment. So it is marketed as a personal utility craft, but make no mistakes, it is a starter SV. That is what it's supposed to be and what it does. So to facilitate the task of being a starter SV, even though it's classified as a personal utility craft, it has an 8K storage container, a mini fridge, some armor lockers, some O2 stations, and a walkable interior, which a lot of starter SVs don't. Most tend to use the prefab cockpit blocks. But as you know, I don't really like using the prefab cockpit blocks. I prefer having a walkable interior, so that's what I've done with my starter. Not to be confused with the starter class shuttle pod, which is this here, the first vehicle in the Wimpomania line, which was a starter ship in another game. It was originally built in StarMade, but of course in this it's not, it's a shuttle pod. So this is that's a starter class shuttle pod, and that's not a starter class starter. You see, sorry for the confusion. Right, I think that'll be roughly. Hang on, no, I do want to say some other things as well. Also, in order to be a starter SV, I have not only tried to keep the unlock level as low as I could, so it's an unlock level 5. But on top of that, I've also tried to use as many level 1 things that come pre-unlocked as possible. Now obviously there are some things I couldn't, like landing gears and, weirdly, thrusters. So what's the point, Elion, please? What is the point of giving us an SV generator, lights, fuel, and air, and some cargo boxes and a cockpit block, and we can put some doors and other lights on it if we want, but then we can't move anywhere because the thrusters to move? I mean, seriously, these should be down here and then those should be here, the mediums, in my opinion. I mean, it's not the only thing they've done that on, is it? Because it's the shield, isn't it? So the shield you can unlock at level 7. The shield though requires CPU 16,300. Well, look at the CPU you get at the same level. The tier 2, which of course is 15,000. So you get access to 15,000 CPU, and you get access to a shield that uses over 1,000 more. So you can't actually use the shield until you're level 12. Anyway, right, so there we go. So I did want to say that as well, that I've used it as much as the lower level as I could, including the stuff that comes pre-unlocked. Right, now it's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its propulsion handling and lift capacity. Right then, starting as usual, like I normally do. Don't look over there. We'll get to them later. So, forward thrust, we have 6 smalls. So, I've only used small thrusters on this ship, so you can now assume that every thruster is small, because you would be assuming correctly. So, 6 pushing forwards, 4 pushing backwards, 2 on each side on the front of the nacelles. Then for lateral thrust, we have... that is going to get on my tits, so I'm going to turn it off for now. So 4 pushing sideways, including one right at the front in order to give it some yaw. Then for descent we have 4 again, and again with 2 at the front for a pitch. That's right. And then lift we also have 10 in total, 5 on each side, 4 on the bottom of each nacelle, and again 1 at the front for pitch, yes. Alright, so there we go. You may notice if you're familiar with my builds that there is no thrusters left off as a max lift function. I haven't done that with this because although a lot of people who might be using this as a starter SV, it won't be their first playthrough, I kind of wanted to keep in mind that it might be someone's first playthrough, so I wanted to keep its functionality as simple as I could. Right, so that was its propulsion. Handling then. So, its mobility, starting with its manoeuvrability, it'll accelerate forwards at 24 meters per second squared. It'll then do rearwards, lateral and down descent, all at 16 meters per second squared, because, you know, same number of the same type of thrusters. It's 4 smalls all in each direction. Blah, blah, blah. And then lift, it'll do 39 meters per second squared acceleration. Lift capacity gets a little bit complicated-ish. So, it will lift in 4G 19.1 tons. And the ship itself, dry weight, is 0.1 tons under that. So, you probably could use this in a 4G environment. You might need to pitch up and then use both ascent and forward thrust at the same time to put the 6 on the back and the 10 at the bottom to use at the same time. Obviously, a 45-degree angle would be the optimum angle for doing that to get off a 4G. So it probably could operate in a 4G environment. The thing is that you probably then couldn't carry anything, so you would need to have it empty. The one thing I would say though, and I will cover this more when we get to it, but there is a little bit of CPU left over. I might as well just go to here. And if we have a look at the medium thrusters, so it's 123 CPU compared to 56. So you're basically adding an extra 124, I think. If you was to replace 2 of the lift thrusters, say that one there and then the matching one on the other side, take them off, put 2 mediums on, that should still be in CPU, or if not, then it'll be, like 10 over? So it'll still be 99% efficient. That should then give you more lift, and of course medium thrusters tier 1s, that's the wrong button, aren't particularly expensive in a constructor. Of course you need to be a higher unlock level, but there you go. Yeah, okay, that's everything. I'm not going to bother giving it a test fly. The thing is, it's quite sizable, so compared to other starter SVs, it might be heavier, but it's not particularly heavy itself. It just comparatively. And it does have plenty of thrusters, so its handling will be quite decent, so I'm not going to bother giving it a test fly, just because I get bored of trying to land back where it says flat here-ish. Aye. Right, that'll be the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its power, fuel and air. Now, as usual with my tours, I'm going to tell you about this stuff now and then show you where they are when I get to the interior layout segment. So, power, a single small generator. Fuel then, we have 10 small fuel tanks. Of course, the reason I've used these is because unlock level 1, same as that one. Yes, that's everything of the fuel. Air. It has 4 O2 tanks, a single ventilator, and it has 2 O2 stations, one of which you can see is there. The other one is a mirror image there-ish, on the inside, obviously. Right, that'll be the end of that segment, nice and quick. The next segment is going to be its weapons, defences and construction. This should be relatively quick as well. Weapons, it has a single Gatling turret and nothing else. These are actually carbon composite blocks that you can rip out and then put weapons on it when you upgrade it to tier 2 or 3 or higher. So, the turret itself, I haven't changed its targeting configuration except I took predators off, and that's it. So you can configure that however you like. Defences, well, it has no shield, it also has no armour, and its construction, as usual now, I've started to do this a little while ago, but here is an unpainted one, so you can see what it's made of. So the medium grey stuff is steel, and the white hexagon stuff is carbon composite, and that's all it's made of, other than obviously the ramps and the doors and the glass. This glass is the normal glass S, I think they call it, Windows S even. So that's not armoured either. I'll give you a quick look just to see, but again, like I said, it's all steel apart from some of the so the illuminated orientation panels that you can see, the red one just there on my crosshair, so that's that, and that is carbon composite. Then there's this stuff up here that doesn't actually matter, it doesn't protect anything, because here there's already a steel block underneath it, is the idea. The core is actually under there, so I have steeled it up the core, but I don't really consider that armour. Okay, there we go. I think you've had a decent enough look at what it's made of. It's made of steel, mostly. Right, that'll be the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its resource gathering, production and storage. This will be relatively quick. Resource gathering, it has none. Production, it has none. And then storage. Well, as I said at the beginning, it has an 8,000 SU cargo container. It also has a 125 ammo container, so that is literally just the controller on its own. It also has a single mini fridge, 2 armor lockers, and 4 small cargo boxes. Alright, that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its interior layout and any remaining devices. So, as usual, I shall start with the any remaining devices on the outside. So first of all, we have the detector up there. Do please bear in mind that the detector is targetable by enemies, but I couldn't really find a better place for it, so I just stuck it on its head. Right, landing gear, I always forget to point out, but it has some. I mean, it's kind of goes without saying really, but there you go. Headlights, it has 2. They are the sloped headlights, but spotlights even, but they do point forward, they aren't diagonal. Speaking of lighting, my ship is fully flight regulation lighting compliant, as usual. So we'll start with the orientation lights. To begin with is the, as I said earlier, the illuminated orientation panels. You can see dotted around. They are, of course, red on the port side, they are white on the stern, and they are green on the starboard side. And they are its formation lights for flying in formation with other craft, especially in low visibility. Then we have the navigation lights that show any observer in which direction it is pointing, although technically so does the formation lights. So again, red on the port, white on the stern, and green on the starboard. Then we have the anti-collision lights, and they come in two flavours. Anti-collision beacons, which are red on top. And by the way, I will be showing you these turned on later on. But for now, I'm just showing you where they are. And yellow on the bottom. And then we have the flight strobes, and those are the bright white flashing lights you see on the wingtips of planes. And I've got one there, one on the back there. Or it might be that one. One of those two. The other one is the nav. And then there. And finally, we have some running lights. Oh, sorry. So the anti-collision beacons, not those, will show any observer, or they're supposed to show any observer, that the engines are running and the ship could move at any moment. Doesn't necessarily translate as well on this one because I've had to change stuff around a little bit, but whatever, that's the point of them. And the flight strobes are supposed to help with visual acquisition at a distance. It doesn't really translate well into game because lights don't really what's the word I'm looking for? You can't see them at long range like you can in real life. But there you go. And lastly is the running lights. That one and that one, the matching ones on the bottom. And then there's two at the front on the bottom, but I haven't bothered putting any on the top. And they let any observer know that the ship is running, as in it's powered. Then we have the name and registry displays. This will be the last thing I talk about before I go inside. You'll see these dotted around, so this is its full registry. So this is Wimpomania, the line to which this belongs. 11, because it's the 11th one in the Wimpomania line. And then this would be the number of which yours is. So mine would be 001 because I have the first. And then if you can be bothered to do to change that. By the way, the LCD projectors for these are that one and that one. I forget which way round they are, but you know, it doesn't take a lot to figure it out. There you go, I figured it out. Do you see? So the back one is the bottom one. BB. B for back, B for bottom. So if you can be bothered to look up how many people have subscribed to this ship on the workshop and then add one, assuming of course that you were the latest person to subscribe to it on the workshop, yours would be that number plus one. Of course you plus one because mine is not subscribed, because I don't need to subscribe to it on the workshop because it's mine. I already have one, so it's that number plus one for me. Okay. But of course, if you want to leave it as the number symbols or put a number there that just means something to you, your credit card PIN, for example. I mean, assuming, of course, you're not doing a YouTube series or Twitch streaming, no one's going to see it, no one's going to care. Right, so that's the main... No, yes, that's the main registry, that's right. And then we have the full registry and its class up here. Oh, and on the back, just there. So it's the Frontiersman class. It's a personal utility craft. That is, of course, what PUC stands for, personal utility craft. There is the main registry, that bit there. And then, of course, that stands for Wimpo Manufacturing. So this is Wimpo Manufacturing, personal utility craft, Wimpomania 11, number. And then we come to its names. Well, you may have seen there's one there, and you may have also seen there's also one there. The projectors are usually in a place that's easy to figure out. Again, I'm not sure which way round that is. I think left is up and right is down, but don't quote me on it. But again, it's easy to figure out. There you go, that one is that one. Didn't even need to replace anything with that one to figure it out, because they're both different. I'm going to collapse all again. So you can, of course, name your ship. So technically, only the first one, mine, should be the IPSV Frontiersman. Of course, if you call yours that, I'm not going to know. I'm not going to particularly care either. And of course, you can name it here as well. Oh, I nearly forgot to explain this, if you care. Intraplanetary... No, close. Intraplanets system vehicle is what the IPSV, because it goes internal to a planet's system. So that'll be between a planet and its moons, its satellites. Yeah, I think that's everything on the outside. Let's go inside and we'll come back to the hatches. Should we do the hatches now? Let's do the hatches now. Since we need to do the hatches from the outside anyway, let's do them while we're outside. Hatch, also known as a ramp. So you would remove these red blocks that are also pink, the pink blocks that are also red. That is a big space for a warp drive. Jetpack, etc. onto the top, where we have this other one, this hatch that is also a shutter. More pink / red blocks just there. So that is a slot for a shield. Now, the compartment where that shield bit is and this warp drive bit is actually the same compartment. So if you remove the blocks from the top, you would actually be able to get the warp drive in the top as well. Oh my god. But I've given you a hatch. Why does it do this? But I've given you a hatch on top and the bottom. This isn't me doing this, by the way, lifting up. It really gets my tits. Alright, so there we go. That's... Oh, and actually, I will go in there as well, because you will also find some actual red blocks that are completely red. You can put anything you like in there. I have painted... You can't see it because the red block... Actually, can I do that? Yeah. So I have painted behind them ready. So the idea is that that's supposed to be a pentaxid tank that holds the fuel for the shield and the warp drive. And then you can put whatever else you want in the rest of these red block spaces. You would remove them with... Actually, I'm covering this too early, aren't I? I should be doing that in the upgrade bit. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then we have access into the nacelles here, where you can add extra stuff. I haven't bothered filling the inside of the thruster nacelles with red blocks, but it is free space for you to put stuff. Okay, now let's go inside proper. Oh, you will notice that the ramp and the lights, that one there, that one up there, and that one under there, is automatic on that motion sensor there. Of course, the one round the other side is the same. You may notice that the door doesn't open. I've left the door manual so that if you're walking around in there and there happens to be a Xerax trooper or a Velociraptor or something, I didn't want the door to open as you walk past it to go get some O2, for example. Right, inside, lots of red blocks with a sign, upgrade slots. So you remove, again with multi-tool, even says it on the screen, a multi-tool of your choice. You can tear these up and add whatever you like. At the back we have the 8000 SU cargo container, along with access to fuel and O2. There is the ventilator. There is the wireless connection, and there is the ammo container. Then if we turn around and look forward, we have the fridge, the 2 armor lockers, 2 small cargo boxes. Oh yeah, I said there were 4 and the other 2 were there. And of course the pilot seat. And as usual, the pilot gets some HUDs, which I'm now going to use to transition onto the next segment, which is its shortcuts and signals. Right then, if we have a look at the device groups and signals shortcuts, you'll see I've given you a little HUD display, even though the D stands for display. It's a heads-up display apparently, that shows you what these are. So, the device group, for those who are familiar with my builds, this is slightly different because of the nature of the vehicle. So, propulsion. I've given you a propulsion switch. Now, this does exactly the same as this thruster switch. The only difference is that, as you can tell by the heads-up display here, you can, when you're sat in the seat, you can turn on propulsion using Control and Shift and 1. I'm pretty sure that is the default keybinds. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the keybinds for turning on and off the device group shortcuts and the signal shortcuts aren't actually listed in the controls, stupidly. But I'm pretty sure, which means of course I can't change it, and so therefore it probably is the default. Alright, so next one down is weapons and shields. Of course the ship doesn't come with shields, but once it does, you can, oh, do you know what? You can then put the shield in a shield thing, a shield device group, there we go, and set its shortcut to the weapons and shields, and then it would work. Again, those of you familiar with my ships will realise that this is different. So I have actually auto-grouped on this ship only, and probably other starters if I do them from now on. I will probably auto-group, and that is why actually the device groups is slightly different, and actually why the anti-collision beacons, I couldn't remember what it was called then for a second, the anti-collision beacons work differently on this. It's because I've auto-grouped rather than set up my own custom groups, which means I have to turn them on and off a different way because the beacons are all in this group now, light. So when you upgrade the ship and you add a shield, you can auto-group. The game will then put the shield in a shield auto group. I'm looking for turret, and I'm not so because I need to scroll down. So, for anyone new, this is where you would do it. You would find the one that then says, actually I don't think they call it shield, do they? It's hull reinforcement, no. Polarized hull shield. I mean, it's got shield in it, but you know. So I think if you was to add, shall I do it? Shall I do it? Right. Auto group. Okay. So where has that put it? Oh, shields and force fields. There you go. So once you've done that, you can then set this shortcut to weapons and shields, and then that switch will control the weapons and the shields. Of course, you would do the same for the fixed weapons, but I'm pretty sure it would put it in the same group as the turrets. No, it probably wouldn't. But that is okay. So you would need to set the shortcut up yourself. Blah blah blah. Right. So that's the explanation of that. That's going to bug me, so I'm going to do that. Why did I close it again? I don't know. Okay, next one down is air vent. So, the ventilator, that thing there, that's blowing air in. If you have a look at power left and you turn oxygen off, the power left doesn't change, because although there's no longer any oxygen being blown into the interior from that ventilator, the ventilator itself is still on. So if we have a look at the power left and I turn air vent off, you will see that the power left goes up. That's how much power is left in the fuel tanks, by the way. For those who don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but you never know. Like I said earlier, maybe someone might be using this for the first time. Which means if you're in a breathable atmosphere, like this for example, you can turn off the air vent and save a bit of power. Right, the next one down is headlights. Now when you're in the seat, you can turn the headlights on and off with a keyboard shortcut, which for me is L for Lima. I don't know if that's default, but I'm pretty sure it is. However, I like to give you a switch as well, so that if you turn the lights on, you get out of your ship, realise you've left them on. I don't want you to have to get back into the cockpit seat in order to turn them off. Now you can do it from outside the ship, is why I do that. Right then, moving on to the signals, we have power save. Do you know what? I can turn the propulsion off now as well, can't I? So, power save, if you turn power save on, and you may have noticed the power left change there, so turning power save on will turn off the LCDs, the ones for the HUDs, the ones for the registration and name displays on the outside, and these little ones explaining to remove red blocks to access space for upgrades. It'll turn all of those off. It'll also turn off the motion sensors, so that one there that controls the lights inside, and then the ones outside. Oh, I didn't paint that, never mind. It's close, and I mean it's the primary colour, so it'll do. It's just I like to paint them in that colour, but whatever, I'm not too fussed. So it'll turn those off, and it'll turn off the wireless connection block. Aye. And I have given you that information on this HUD just here as well. Oh, I should point that out as well, really, shouldn't I? The fact that I've given you what it can carry on a screen. That should have been during the interior bit, but never mind. Okay, next two down are the flight regulation lights. So we have the nav lights, which, as I said earlier, are the red on the left, the white on the stern, and the green on the starboard. And then the anti-collision lights, which is the red one flashing on top, the yellow ones flashing underneath, and of course the bright white flight strobes there and there and there. And finally we have closed hatches. So if you are interacting with the upgrade spaces and then you get in your cockpit forgetting to close it, and then you go into the third person view and you realise that it's open, I wanted to give you a way to shut that without getting back out of your cockpit seat. It's like the headlights but in reverse. So this switch will close them, and it'll only close them, it won't open them again. And that stop it. And that is of course true for that one and those on top. Aye. Right, that'll be the end of that segment then. So the next segment is going to be CPU and upgrading. Okay, just in case you're skipping around in the video, I'm going to show this again. So the core is under that lump there. CPU, it is tier 1 CPU, so it has just the core, and as you can see it comes under budget. 5877 out of 6,000 you are allowed. And then upgrading. So as you saw earlier, I started to explain this when really I should have been saving it for now. So, upgrade spaces. You can access the interior of the thruster nacelles through those shutters, and as you can see there's plenty of space in here for whatever you want. There is some of the container extensions for the 8K cargo container, so you could even expand the cargo container into the nacelles if you wish. There is some fuel in here. You could fill it with fuel. Do be warned that fuel, of course, will go pop if anything starts shooting at your thrusters. Speaking of thrusters, of course, they are all small, so you can, of course, upgrade some or all or most to mediums if you wish. You might be able to do a few larges, but you might struggle with space. But I mean, you know, if you can, if you want to, then by all means. Right, as I said earlier, this is a slot for a shield. You would take your multi-tool of choice, you would select retrieve blocks, and you would pick these up. I'm not going to, because I want to be able to put them back, so I'm going to delete them in God mode. So that's where you would then put your shield. Again, as I said earlier, that is also where the warp core would go. The warp core, Star Trek. The warp drive, similar. So again, you would delete those blocks and put the warp drive in there. But I gave you access from top and bottom to make it easier in case you want one or the other without, you know, doing the other or the first one. Aye. Okay, that's all back to normal. Good. So those are those spaces. Oh, and as I said earlier, there is also some extra red blocks in here that you can also remove. So I've painted that to be generators if you want more power. And of course you will need more power if you're putting a warp drive and especially a shield in here. And of course these red blocks here, so I've set the middle one up for the pentaxid tank. And then the ones either side, when I say set up, I mean painted with that. So that denotes fuel. I mean, you don't have to put fuel there. You can put whatever you want, but it gives you an idea of what you could put. So that's the upgrade slots in the back. Then we have some weapon hardpoints. So I've painted this to show you that you can put another turret there. And one there. Of course, a matching one on the other side, on the top of the other nacelle. And you would put a couple of fixed weapons there and there. Or some drills, perhaps. You could also take up this glass and put some blocks. Or, of course, you could put it straight on the glass if you don't give a shit. You could put another turret there if you wanted. And then we have the red blocks in here. So there's the generator that comes with it. The red block on the other side is painted in such a way that to indicate you would put another one there. And then this you can do whatever you want with. So I would suggest putting the CPU extenders. No, that is not what I wanted to click on. There we go. Oh, what the fuck? Okay, apparently I tapped two buttons at once. Yeah, so I would suggest CPU extenders or cargo or, you know, whatever you want, more fuel. And speaking of extensions, like I said earlier, there's the ammo box. I would suggest container extensions there and there in order to expand how much ammo you can carry. Now, if you will forgive me, I have thrown together a few examples. So this one I've set up as a shuttle. So this one is still tier 1. It's still within budget of the CPU. So all I did was I moved the cockpit seat across one block, added some passenger seats. Of course, I then had to go into the LCD projectors and move the heads-up displays around a little bit so that they were now visible from the new location of the pilot seat. Shush! If you're not too worried about having to pick up seats in order to access the gubbins in the back, you are, of course, free to slap a fifth one there and have 5 people in here in total. So this gives you an early game method to transport around a few friends, if you have any. Aye. Then we have this. So I've turned it into a competent little miner. So as you can see, I've slapped 2 laser drills into the hard points on the bow there. You might also notice that I've upgraded some of the thrusters to be medium tier 1s. I've also put another couple of turrets in place. I've removed the glass window in the ceiling and replaced it with a shutter door, so that you now have what's known as a drone hatch, although, I mean, the doors are big enough that you could probably get a drone out through them, but whatever. And then I did this in here. There's the another generator. There's the CPU extender. So this is tier 2, this little miner. I replaced the cargo container controller with an ore and wood controller, and that now gives the lasers an 8K storage box for any ores you will be mining. I've put some more O2 in the ceiling and some more fuel and a cargo box. And I'm pretty sure that's all I've done. Warp drive? I think I did a warp drive. I did a warp drive. So there you go. Warp drive in the bottom. And like I said, that all comes as tier 2. In fact, there's 1,000 to play with still. So there you go. That gives you some idea of what you could do with this. Here's what the inside of the thruster nacelles look like with some medium thrusters installed. Okay, and then finally we have what I consider to be the pinnacle of this vehicle, the tier 3. So as I mentioned earlier, I put some blocks instead of windows and slapped another turret on top. I reorientated these ones just to point forward rather than sideways, popped one on the top there as well. Of course the one on the bottom is in place. I put some pulse lasers for taking down shields. As you can see, I put a whole bunch of medium thrusters in this one, and then in the thruster nacelles, in the spaces left from upgrading the thrusters, I put more fuel and more O2. Well, one tank in each nacelle, but whatever. Oh my god! Shut up! Of course, in the back we have a shield and a warp drive. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the red blocks. Pentaxid tank in the middle, fuel tank either side. Extra generators for powering all of this, because the the shield alone is 3600 power. Yeah, when it's charging. Okay, so that's what I've done in there, and then in here I've popped a gravity generator on top of the fridge, because why not? And then this is what I've done at the back. There's the tier 3 CPU extenders. There is a constructor. And I've extended the ammo, as I mentioned earlier. And then filled in the rest of the spaces with just a couple of small cargo boxes. That one and those two. So there you go, that is an option. Now, as the screen does suggest here with what it can lift, bear in mind that's before modifications, so obviously the more stuff you add, the heavier it will become. So this tier 3 one is 33.4 tons. So 24.4 tons more. So nearly, is that right? 19, no. 14.4 tons more. Shit at maths. But then of course the upgrading most of the thrusters to medium will of course help to lift that. So there you go. There are some examples of how you could upgrade as you play. Or, you know, turn it into something else. Well, I mean, moving people around is still a utility, I would say. Right, there we go. I think that's going to be the end of that segment. So the next and last segment is going to be any other info. Right, first of all then, I'm going to talk about the damage texture that you may have seen as I was clipping through blocks. So, in case you are wondering, I consider that colour and that texture to be my damage texture. And what that means is when you take damage from enemy fire, what's then exposed looks to me like smouldering metal, Whereas if I had left it the default textures, since that is just a hull texture, it would be hard to see that that's damage. So I'd like to make it look more realistic by doing that. Okay. Then there's the name I'm going to talk about. So, because I consider myself to be a noob at building, the Wimpomania line of vehicles are all named either synonyms of newbie, as in someone who is new at something, or synonyms of someone who is the first at something, which is why you end up with things like initiate and cadet and beginner and student or something. And Frontiersman, of course, is someone who is the first to settle an area. Usually, a frontiersman will try to live on the frontier of what's unknown, between the known and unknown, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so a synonym of pioneer, then, I suppose it would be, which, of course, is another vehicle in the Wimpomania line, Pioneer. Normally, I would talk about how to turn or how to turn off the blinkies if you don't like them. Of course, with this one, the only blinkies that are going on automatically are the running lights. Everything else is controlled by this switch here. So if you don't like them, you just don't turn them on. Unfortunately, it's not as easy to turn off the running lights on this one as it is on other vehicles of mine. So you would need to find the light device group, and then you would need to find anything with the word running light, and then turn the active switch off. Anything with running light in the name. Now, annoyingly, I can't... Oh, hang on a minute. Assuming, of course, that you're on the outside, you could just deactivate the whole lot. Yeah. Okay, so from the outside of the ship, you could just deactivate the block group. So anything that then is activated by motion sensors will still work. Yeah. So there you go. I thought about it a bit too complicated than it was supposed to be. That wasn't correct English, but it'll do. Okay. That is everything I need to talk about. Oh, there's one thing that I like to do on camera, and I'm going to do it as well, just so you feel like you're part of the process. And that is, of course, to oh, did I accidentally okay, I accidentally clicked to save it, save the vehicle as a blueprint rather than just open the blueprint menu. Right. Let's publish. Of course, I'm going to leave it as private so I can do the description and the images and shizzle. Oh, and of course edit and upload this video. There we go. Right. So thank you very much for taking an interest in the Frontiersman class personal utility craft, aka Starter SV. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.